What's up, guys? Welcome to the Walk On Warrior podcast, where we prepare young student athletes for next level success. I am your host, Coach Z, and I'm super, super excited for our guest today. Listen, the stars have finally aligned that I have my guy right here, right in front of me, and in front of you guys, most importantly, you parents and you young student athletes, a guy that has been there, has done it, and now he's given back as a coach at the collegiate level. And listen, without further ado, let's bring him on. Brad Cagle, welcome to the Walk On Warrior podcast. What's going on?
What's up, man? Appreciate you having me. I'm excited to be here talking to you about all this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, hey, I wanted to jump into this real quick just for the viewers. The viewers don't know you are from San Diego, and now you are coaching in Kansas, which are the two polar opposite areas of the country. What was from you being a player in San Diego going to Kansas? How was that transition?
I'll tell you what, it's different. Everyone's subjected to their own opinion, so everyone has their different thoughts. I'm sure there's guys from California that came out to Kansas and just didn't like it. Me personally, I liked it. It was a big change, but it was cool. I mean, firsthand being out in San Diego, we don't get to experience all 4 seasons. Really, like, you don't get to really see the leaves change. You don't see the snowfall in the winter unless you're going up to the mountains, if drive a couple hours. But here you experience all 4 seasons, and that was like a real trip for me, and it was really cool experiencing that. There's no traffic out here. It's not crowded. The cost of living is a lot better. So, I mean, there's a lot of benefits to being out here, and from playing wise, it's not much different. There's good ball to be played all around. I mean, nowadays all around the world. It's expanding everywhere, but yeah, especially in Kansas, a lot of good ball to be played here, and it was a good transition for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's one thing that I bring up when I'm talking to young student athletes that are saying, well, I'm only getting D2, D3 and AI looks. And everybody, well, not everybody, but most people will know eventually that most of those schools are in, we'll just say, remote areas, where there's just the population's not as big as California, New York, Florida, Illinois. And you really, if you're growing up in those states, you really have to understand that there's many different transitions, and you have to reinvent yourself on the field, in the classroom, being an adult, going from a lot of noise, a lot of craziness to almost nothing. I've been given opportunities to go coach, Upper Iowa, all these different areas. And they're as little as them telling me what rent is. I'm like, dude, I'm like a king.
Yes. And it's nice. And I'll tell you one other thing is, if you ever are a student athlete looking to go to the next level, and I don't know, some people want to go to those big cities and have a lot to do and everything like that. But if you're ever worried about distractions or anything, then man, take these opportunities at these smaller schools or these schools in these smaller cities where you have no choice but to lock in and do good in the classroom, train hard so that you can perform on the field. Like, there's no distractions getting in your way. It's just, you have no choice but to just lock in and do your thing.
That's a great point, and that's something I actually wasn't planning on talking about, but I want to segue into that because that's really important with a young student athlete. Let's say it's late in the game. So as we're recording this is May 15th. So you're past that second signing date. Now you're kind of getting past spring, going into summer. Now a young student athlete's deciding, well, okay, so I've been getting some looks from D2, D3 NAIAs. No D1s. Everybody wants to be a D1 player, right?
Right.
That's their goal. So, but now we're transitioning into that. Okay, so what's our last choice to go and play somewhere? And we're talking about it being in a remote area. Now talk about the level of play. And there's really not a whole. I mean, yes, Division I, you've got all the money, you've got all the fame, you got all the stars, you got all these different things. But on top of that, you've got thousands of opportunities at this level, and there's good football to be played, good academics to be getting. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm glad you actually brought that up, because that's something I wanted to even talk about. And that's something I talk about when I'm recruiting these kids. I know, Bethel College is an NAIA program, and in a small, relatively smaller town in Kansas. We're a small school, 500 students, but like I came from playing JUCO ball I played with D1 talent, played against Division I talent, played with guys who are now in the league, played against guys who've gone to the league. So I know what it's like to play against that competition. And then I ended up going out and playing NAIA ball. And I was kind of in that mindset, like, man, I just don't know what it's going to be like. I was D1, D2 or nothing, but that opportunity came and it made it happen. And I went and I was surprised. The level of competition out here it's good. There's good ball to be played. There's ball players all over the place, especially at the NAIA level. It's a lot of guys who either just slip through the cracks of recruiting and are great players, or maybe bounce back from Division I, Division II schools. Things didn't fall in their way, and they had to transfer or maybe get in trouble or whatever. And this is a second opportunity for them to come to these schools and shine. And I've seen it a lot, and I played against a lot of good competition, and it's a lot of good ball to be played out here.
Yeah. No, and that's something that needs to be celebrated. And that's why we do this Walk on Warrior podcast, because, you're running into those kids that may potentially be in a situation where, they're not getting the scholarships, the opportunities. And now what do you do? Right. And I think that is one of the open doors. Kids, I mean, I don't know. I don't have any research to show this, but if I was to go and just do my own research and go recruit kids, go to all these different high schools right now before graduation and go and just say, listen, who are all the kids on this roster that want to play after high school? Who has an offer? Who doesn't have an offer? And what's your plan moving forward? And like, I bet you out of 10, go to every school, there's 10 kids. I bet you there's probably 8 of them that want to still play, but they're like, what am I supposed to do? Right. And it's really important. I think it's key for us to, when we're pushing this out there, is to not only push recruitment and get prepared and do things the right way and just let the chips fall where they may. But I think it's also important that we say, hey, we're going to retrain your brain a little bit, because society says, number one, you got to go to camps, which is good. You got to get the stars, which is, whatever. Then you got to go and you've got to be a Division I player, and it's D1 or bust. But I think being real and realistic about who you are, where you are, and right where you can play. Right, coaches will miss the boat, and so now what do you do? So, Coach Cagle, my question to you is: so we're late in the game right now. So, what does it look like from you as a coach? Right, talk about after that second exit meeting with players. What does it look like right now for a kid that could possibly be a walk-on JUCO player?
As in just coming into the program, like what do you?
Yeah. So let me rephrase it. This is a better thing. So you're going to have kids that are going to either quit. You're going to have kids that are not going to be on roster anymore because of grades. So what are you guys looking for right now? Because there's a lot of the schools are still looking for players.
Yeah. Right now, for us particularly, we're just kind of looking for a few more spots to just fill in here and there. We kind of have a pretty good numbers coming in the fall, but I know there are still a lot of schools out there that are looking for guys. So I guess my only advice is, if there are schools looking for guys and there are guys still trying to look for opportunities, is just to not give up and just continue to reach out to as many coaches as you can. Especially at these lower level colleges. In this time, we're trying to just fill a lot more, just filling spaces, getting our numbers to where we want to be. So the opportunity is still going to be there for a lot of guys, as long as they continue reaching out and don't give up on the process. Because I know a lot of people think, oh, too late now, or might think it's too late, but it's definitely not, as long as you take the initiative and have the confidence to reach out and show us that you want to be there. And as long as we feel like you want to be there, then we're going to give you the effort back and bring you in.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So let's segue. This is perfect. I'm glad you brought that up. So talk about, how do I get Coach Cagle's attention? Let's go back to, say I'm a senior. Well, we're technically talking about seniors, but if I'm a senior or late junior, how do I get Coach Cagle's attention?
Just honestly, just reach out. I'm big at just looking at all my messages and taking a look at whatever highlights are sent to me. I prefer not just a highlight. I like to get a little bit of like, hey, coach, how's it going? Make the message a little more personal rather than just send me your highlights and, hey, coach, check this out. Like, give me a little bit more, like, I want to know a little bit more about you rather than just check your highlights. I mean, sometimes if I'll check the highlight. If it's good, then I'll reach back out. But there's got to be a little more in the message to kind of grab my attention as well. But I'll take a look at all the highlights. And right now, since I'm still a little early in my coaching career, the DMs they get flooded with messages and recruits and stuff, but not to an overwhelming amount where I'm not going to just skip over guys. So I'm going to take a look at everyone and just reach out and have the confidence to reach out and sell yourself, I guess I'd say as well.
Yeah. So when a kid is reaching out to you, here's an important point. So when we're talking to these young student athletes, so when we're talking about attention, getting attention, so talk about the most. So as a coach, what's your go-to? Is it social media? Is it emails? How do you stop scrolling when you're looking for a kid?
Yeah, nowadays it's really just social media. That's just really nowadays just the driving force of all recruiting, and that's where all these kids are getting their offers and reaching out to coaches. It was a little bit different even when I was a high school senior. I was emailing coaches left and right, but now it's big on social media, and nowadays everyone's on it. And whether it's me working with my other business or scrolling through trying to find recruits, I'm pretty much always on it. So if it's going to be one way to reach out, it's going to be on social media.
Yeah. Do you have a particular social media that you really check out the most?
Recruiting wise, it's Twitter or X now. I feel like that's just the most professional and easiest way to get recruiting done. But I'm on all forms of social media. So any way kids want to find me and recruits want to reach out, then I'm there.
Yeah. So what's going to get Coach Cagle to stop scrolling? And when a kid does get, or when you do stop scrolling, what are specifics? What drives Coach Cagle crazy, just like it did me?
Like what draws my attention to want to see them?
Yeah. So here's what I'm thinking, right? So when I'm looking on X or Twitter and I'm scrolling down, and first thing that catches my attention, of course, at the JUCO level, I'm recruiting based on avatar. If I see big guy, if I see offensive guard, then all of a sudden I see 6'2", boom, 270, I'm stopping. Right. And then I go down your timeline. But there's things that drive me crazy, Coach. And I'll tell you what drives me the most crazy. This will help you.
Let's hear
so
it.
When I'm scrolling, and this is important, what drives me crazy is a kid will have on his avatar picture or his profile picture, he'll have him holding money or, something that's totally going to turn me off.
Right.
God forbid, they're holding the, gun or their girlfriends or something silly. But I want to see, here's what I want to see. I want to see, obviously, your name. I want to see a highlight, your link. I want to see your height, weight. I want to see your position, and I want to see your email. That's kind of your core of what I'm looking for when I stop. I'm going to stop on your, and then of course you want to make sure that, the coach knows when your graduation date is. Right. And that's going to stop me in my tracks. And then I go through the timeline. So is there something that specifically that you could share with that?
No, I'm pretty much in the same boat with that. If I'm scrolling and it just obviously their profile picture's if it looks like they're a football player and it's like an action photo, or even if they're in baseball season, then they have a baseball profile picture. We know that they're an athlete and they're taking it serious. They're not just, I don't know, flexing money or whatever on Instagram, which I'm not judging anyone with whatever they want to do. They can express themselves however, but I guess just as college coaches, I guess it just makes us question if they're fully serious into it, and they're wanting to give us the best look possible. So yeah, if it looks as professional as possible, we're scrolling and then you see class of 2025 quarterback, height, weight, whatever. Obviously the big height and weights will draw my attention when it comes to like certain positions, but when it comes to quarterbacks, specifically if I'm looking for a quarterback, I'm not too wowed on like the height and weight. Yes, it's good, it's great, but like I like to see stats as well. So if you have your completion percentage, what your stats were on the season, maybe even your team's record, so I get to see if you had a winning season or not. That kind of helps out a lot too. But I like to see stats and just make it look professional rather than just kind of just throwing yourself out there, just posting a highlight without any context, or just like, hey, check this out, like we don't even know what class you're in. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. I always use an analogy when it comes to coaches. When I talk to kids, I'm like, coaches are FBI agents. Like coaches will, once you stop them in their tracks, they're going to dig into everything. And coaches want a reason to recruit a kid, and it's just a weird profession, but you're constantly wanting to bring somebody in because you want to improve your position as a coach. Yeah. You want to eventually move up. And so you're constantly looking for talent. And I also mentioned this with young student athletes. Stop messaging head coaches, stop messaging offensive and defensive coordinators. Go get those position coaches, those lower level recruiting guys, those guys that are really going to go above and beyond and look at your information. Because like I said, as a position coach, you don't want to just stay a position coach. You definitely don't want to stay where you're at. You want to constantly be moving up. Right. So how do you do that? You try to get the best players possible, and you want to make the coach. Right. You know what I'm saying? Correct. And it's simple, but kids don't think about, or even parents don't think about that. So do you have anything to share on that?
Yeah, I could add to that just a bit. It does. I guess I could say it varies a little bit on the level of play. Like, yes, for Division I, Division II, I probably wouldn't recommend reaching out to those head coaches and coordinators. They're just getting flooded with DMs and emails, and brought more recruits from their position coaches all day long. So they're not going to take the time to reach out or even look at all of them. So yes, reach out to those position coaches, recruiting coordinators, all that. When it comes to the level I'm at, NAIA, it may be okay to go reach out to those head coaches and those coordinators. I know definitely at my school that my head coach and my coordinators they're out there and they're recruiting a lot, and they're on the social medias and they're talking to kids a lot. So they don't mind the kids reaching out. I think it even helps out sometimes. But also reach out to the position coaches, because you want to form those relationships with your position coach if you really are interested in coming as well, rather than just trying to get the head coach's attention.
Yeah. And that's really a good point, man. And I didn't really think about that. But yeah, at those levels, I don't like call them lower level, but those schools at D2 and below, your head coaches are doing everything. They're painting the lines on the field, everything, man. So, that's a really, really good point. And the big thing is getting attention. Shout out SDFNL. We're talking about getting attention. And, when I saw you come out when I was helping coach the SCFNL, it's one of those things, you're trying to get that attention to coaches. There are coaches there. Kids don't understand that, every move you make, everything that you do, you're looking to wow a coach. Yep. And, but there's pieces to this thing. Like, you can't just expect the coach out of nowhere just to find you. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, you got to be somewhat of a businessman. And if not, then you're put in a situation, that walk on and JUCO, and maybe you just, talent you just haven't developed yet. But let's talk about that too. So we're talking about attention. So getting that physical attention, right, in person. So let's say you had just a decent career in high school, you're late in the game. You either want to get recruited, or now you've decided, you know what, this is something I want to keep doing. Now what? So we're talking about camps. Let's talk about camps. How important is a camp? I know you're running academy. We'll plug it a little bit later, but Midwest Passing Academy. We'll just say it now. Shout out. But how important are these camps to get exposure and get in front of coaches? And when a kid goes to a camp, how do you prepare for that?
Well, I guess it varies. When I was going through the process and after high school and through high school, going to all these camps, it's a little bit different. I didn't really ever go to the any smaller camps. I was trying to go to all these big camps, and my parents were spending a bunch of money on me to go to these big camps, and it just kind of seemed like I just kept getting overlooked. And I feel like, I guess my only advice is to some of these recruits is, if you want to go to those big camps, by all means, go to them. They're great. I feel like it's a little better to go to those if you get invited to them, because then the coaches know you because they invited you, and then you're going to get looked at a little bit more rather than you just going out, spending the money, hoping you're going to get noticed without you really even getting the invite to it or anything. But when it comes to these like smaller camps, or for example, if we're hosting a camp at Bethel College, like a prospect camp, I think schools like those are definitely beneficial for recruits to go to those camps, especially if it's a school that is recruiting you and then invited you to that camp. Why not go? Especially if it's not too expensive. Go ahead and go, because it's going to give you the exposure. It's going to show the coaches that you want to be there. For one, you came, you took the time to get there, travel, show every aspect of wanting to come to your program and play. So it's just going to give us as coaches more reason to want to offer you and bring you in. So,
yeah. Well, the reality is, when you go to those larger camps, it's a money grab. Yeah. And for example, like, I can't remember the numbers, but Southern Cal, I'm going to rip on USC. It's like that at a lot of D1 schools. But these big Division I schools, you'll have 20 guys in each position. And it's, unless you're invited, they're going to put you in a database. They may or may not recruit you. If you have a star down the road, they may say, well, let's check our database. Did he come to anything? But they're really not necessarily going to remember you. They're going to make, a couple $100K on the deal. And it's a way to get around recruiting and, the recruiting rules and everything. And I don't even know why there's rules anymore for it, because it's like, it's such a wild west. But I always tell young student athletes, here's what you do. So if you're planning on going to camps, don't go to a lot of camps. Go to camps with a purpose. Have certain questions. Go talk to Coach Cagle before you actually go to the camp. Just say, hey, listen, I'm going to be attending your camp. I'm a quarterback. Is there anything that I need? Here's my highlights. Here's my whatever. If you see it, cool. If not, no worries. When you get there, go right to you, coach. Remember, kids don't have anything to lose, right? But kids are afraid to step out of their comfort zone. It's like, show up, go find the coach that you reached out to. Hi, I'm so-and-so. Mm-hmm. Pay attention to me, however you want to put it, then go out there and just bust your butt and do your best. And then at the end, if a coach did pay attention to you, hopefully they did, right? What can I get better on?
Right.
I'm interested in your school. And here's another thing I always think is really important. Stop going to those big ones. Like, the only reason you're going to it is because you want to show your friends you went to it. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. Go to schools within arm's reach, right? We're in San Diego. Let's say there's not a lot of smaller schools out here anymore. Let's just say all the JUCOs out here have them, right? Go to all the junior college ones, right? Because those coaches are going to definitely stay in contact with you, right? If there's D2s around you, like Kansas, you guys have got about 1,000 D2s, D3s, and AIs. They're everywhere. So within arm's reach, it's like, listen, come up 3 or 5 schools, go to them. Those coaches are for sure going to stay in touch with you. It's a percentage game, right?
Yeah.
So go there, have good communication with the coaches, bust your butt, do everything you're supposed to. I also will say, Coach Cagle, you can definitely turn a coach off going to these camps and acting like it happens. And I've seen it.
Yes.
Where kids have attitudes and all that, and a coach is like, Have you ever seen that at camps?
Being a part of, like, when I was participating in camps and showing up and seeing a kid who maybe thinks he's a hot shot and comes in and he could have all the talent in the world, but his attitude's not there and he's yelling at his receivers or anything, or just his body language is not how coaches want to see. And you kind of see the coaches just shy away from them slowly throughout the camp, and like, oh, and then that player starts to get a little progressively more angry, and it shows for sure. And it definitely can turn coaches off.
Yeah.
Haven't really experienced it as a coach yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the thing is I really like what you're doing with the Midwest Passing Academy, because there's need for it, right? Kids want to get better, and they're trying to look for all these outlets. And camps are one way to get exposure and kind of get better. There's not really – that's another point, is like, you go to these camps. Are you really going to get better? What's the point of going to the camp if you're not going to get better and you just look at it as a recruiting tool?
Right, especially – I can segue into that, because especially those big camps where it seems like more of a cash grab and 100 to 200 kids, like, how – that's like impossible for the coaches to pay attention to all those kids. That's crazy. So transitioning into my Midwest Passing Academy, we're going to be hosting 4 different passing camps this summer throughout. Starting this Saturday is our first one, and then every 3 weeks after that, we'll have another one, for totaling 4 of them. And that's why I recommend. I don't want to hype it up and say better than all these other camps, but an opportunity to come to a camp like this, or if any of your private coaches are hosting camps, or trainers are hosting camps throughout the summer, I think it's beneficial to go to those, especially if you can build the relationship with that coach and realize the assets that coach can bring to you, whether it's getting you exposure, getting you the right coaching and everything. Because when it comes to my camps, numbers aren't huge right now. It's all starting up. I know right now we're looking at maybe 20 to 30 kids at this first camp, and then progressively just going to build. But that's just going to give me the opportunity to give them the best coaching possible. So they're going to get everything out of me. They're going to get the exposure, because it's all going to get filmed. So it's going to get posted on the social media. So it helps them build them and helps them get the exposure that they need, because I'm not having to worry about 100, 200 kids. I can put my effort into the kids that are there and committed and want to work with me, because then it shows that I'm committed to them as well. And then everything just builds from that, because obviously I have college coaches around the nation that I have connections with and can help spread my guys to, and just go from there.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing that's another avenue that we're going to start exploring with the Walk On Warrior podcast. Did I lose? Okay. But yeah, that's another avenue with the Walk On Warrior podcast. I was telling you this before, but I know a lot of coaches as well throughout the country, and we're going to just turn this thing into more of a recruiting platform where a kid, if he wants to, he can email us his highlights, and when we're doing this thing live with Coach, I won't name names, but up at Ventura or over here, at Laverne or here at USC or USD, some of the coaches that want to come on, we'll have a good conversation, and boom, I'll just pull up your highlights, and it's a good way to get in front of these coaches. Absolutely. And we'll just recruit you right there, and they can fight over you.
Right. That's a good idea. Yeah.
But you have to put yourself in the right position. Let's talk about personal coaches, right? So you're talking about an academy. Obviously, you're not going to try to explode this thing to where there's 500 players there. You're trying to keep it a little bit more grounded. Tom Brady, this situation came up when I was thinking about what you were saying is when Brady was with the Patriots, he had a personal coach, remember? And his personal coach was on campus all the time, and it was driving people crazy. And what I'm getting at is personal coaches and going to academy and stuff like that. You're a good guy. You're looking to help. You're looking to make these guys better. You don't want to be in the way. You're a coach. You know what it is. Yeah. You already know that some of these kids, if they come at you and they're in your program and say, well, no, my personal coach says this. That's one thing that's like, it drives me crazy. My running back coach, my so-and-so. Listen, it's all about system. It's all about you, Coach Cagle, at Bethel College, following what you follow. And these camps are great because they help improve the technique, the fundamentals, and the development, but also being around a good guy like yourself that's a mentor. Maybe a kid doesn't come to Bethel College. Maybe he goes to a rival, God forbid. Yeah. But you want to see what's best for the kid versus Absolutely. A lot of these money grabs out there that drive me nuts. And it's a money grab, and these guys don't care. And a lot of them don't know what they're doing. Let's be honest. Right. Right. And they're making a ton of money, and they've got a good scheme and a good shtick and all that crap. So anyway, that's one thing that just drives me crazy. All right. Even better. So now Coach Cagle has gotten your attention. You're coming to my high school. Okay. Talk about the importance of first impressions, first visits. Coach Brad Cagle is going to reach out to, I don't know what a local school is there. We'll just say El Cap, right? You're coming to El Cap High School. You're recruiting kids there. How important is it for first impressions and asking questions?
It's really important. Obviously, just being attentive, walking up, shaking the coach's hand, having eye contact. I know some people might be a little shy, and you got to understand that, but having the confidence, looking the coach in the eye, shaking their hand, and then just being attentive, listening to what the coach has to say, asking questions, making it seem like you're interested, asking the right questions, if you're a quarterback, wanting to know, hey, what offense do you run? Hey, do you guys have, what kind of passing concepts do you guys do? This and that, like what's it like there? Like asking the right questions specific to your position or what you want to get out of the program, and maybe even just asking about like the school, like that helps us know you're serious about it, because it's not just football. You care about what goes on outside of football and how you do in the classroom. So just being attentive, asking the right questions, and acting like you care and want to be in the conversation talking to us. So.
Yeah. So how important is it for a young student athlete to have a good relationship with his own head coach?
I'd say it's pretty important. I mean, I wouldn't say it's the biggest deal breaker, because I know nowadays, and even it's probably happened all throughout the years. People have had coaches that they just don't like or don't get along with. And you could be the star player on the team and you and the head coach don't get along, but the head coach has no choice but to play you. Yeah. And sometimes that just your talent outshines any relationship you have with the coach, and it may just work out like that. But obviously you want to have a good relationship with your head coach, your position coach, because because we talk to the coaches. We want to know characteristics of the kids, and we want to know if they are good kids. So we like to hear that the coach has good things to say about their kids. So
that's what I was looking for. Because you are correct. I've gotten into it with some, gurus out there, and they say, well, it's, they're selling a product. That's, they're the recruiting guru, recruit you, whatever it is. They're clearly running a business, and they're going to say whatever they want to say. And they say, well, it's not important to have a good relationship with your coaches, or not your coaches, but your head coach. And I disagree. I mean, yeah, you're going to have some coaches, but how many times have you heard this? Coach, he don't like me. He don't play me. The teacher doesn't like me. The professor doesn't like me. Everybody doesn't like you just because you're not getting what you think you should get.
Right.
And you as a coach at the next level, you have even, like I said, even more discernment on kind of getting an idea of who the kid is, who the coach is, and if there's a smoking gun, or however you want to put it, right in that situation.
Right.
I hear that all the time, man. Like a kid will get a bad grade, and the teacher just doesn't like me. And then you start digging in. You start, like, when I'm recruiting, or if I was in your shoes, I'm going to ask them weird questions. I think the NFL Combine, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but they do all these interviews and they ask them weird and random questions.
Right.
What their favorite food is and all these different things. I do that all the time with kids. Yeah. Because I want to see if a kid has a good personality. Because if it's kind of dry humor, it's like it all kind of makes sense. Yeah. Because the last thing you want when a kid comes to your program, you spend the time, the effort, and even money, and we're going to talk about that in a second, but even a little bit of the money, investing time into these kids, they show up on campus, and then you're like, oh, man, you're just like, I gotta cut him loose. You don't want to, but you got to cut him loose because, the reality is they just didn't give us what we're looking for. Talk about the lower levels and money. And spots available. Talk about money first, then talk about spots available.
Oh, money. That is probably the biggest issue. I know for us specifically, we rely heavily on just our fundraising, our team fundraising, and what we can get out of that. And that's basically all we can rely on, because we don't have much outside funding. We don't have really much donors to help us out. And then on top of that, like, we could do our best to give as much money when it comes to athletic and academic scholarships, but it can never really get to a full offer. A lot of the times these NAIA schools, it relies on whether these kids qualify for Pell Grant, how much they get from financial aid, or what they can afford out of pocket, because it ranges depending on the type of recruit you are and how badly we need you, or what we need is how much we're going to give you, and we're going to try to make that out of pocket cost as minimal as possible. But most of the time there's going to be some out of pocket cost, and you're going to have to find some loans to get that covered and everything, especially for us and a lot of these lower level schools. But if you can go to a school that has some outside funding, that does help a lot as well. I know there's some schools in our conference and in the NAIA level that offer a little bit more than we can. So then we get some recruits that are like, hey, coach, so and so gave me this amount. Do you think you can match that? Or like, unfortunately, we can't. Like, which is literally just not in our budget, and we can't do it. And so, unfortunately, we lose some recruits in that aspect. So that's when we really rely on building good relationships with those recruits, and finding good kids and finding the right kids that fit the right situation that can make it work, and relying on relationships to build with those kids to know that they're coming into a good situation, even if they are having to take out some loans, and understanding that getting that college degree, getting this experience and everything it's going to work out, and it's going to pay those loans off if you end up having to take them out. So.
I think one of the questions that a kid has to ask themselves is, how bad do you want to play? Or how important it is to you. I had a text conversation with one of my players, and he asked me for some advice, and I said, how much do you want to play? And how important is it to you? I also asked him, I said, before that, I said, so what's more important, academics or football? He gave me two scenarios, and I said, well, what's more important, academics or football? And he said, well, my academics are locked in and I'm not really focused, And I said, okay, well, so now you're dialed in to go play football. So let's look at the time period right now. You're late in the game, your size, your position, and what's available. I mean, I don't have to know every school out there to tell you that there's going to be spots available.
Yeah.
It's just being able to find them. And then also when the phone call comes in, you got to go now. There's no like waiting around and planning and preparation. That's another thing I don't think coaches really talk about. And that's Walk On Warrior podcast. We try to be as real as possible. Mm-hmm. Is that, like a couple of years ago, we had a kid at Grossmont, Rock Gonzalez, shout out, great defensive end, big kid, did everything you're supposed to, kept himself prepared and ready to go, didn't commit anywhere. And he was definitely on that D1, 1AA, D2, high D2. And I want to say late May, because of the portal situation now, they give him a call, but they didn't tell it, at last minute, they said, oh, you got to be here on Monday, right? That's the nature of the business.
It is, yeah.
Right. And so with that being the case, just being prepared and knowing that there's just not a lot of spots, but there's still spots available, especially those lower levels. At Bethel, how many guys are you recruiting in a recruiting cycle? Like, how many guys would you bring in? Kind of roughly.
We had a goal set to bring in about 115. 115 this fall. We try to shoot to try to get closer to maybe 125 committed, and then there's usually a drop off of about 10. So that would get us to that 115 number is what we're trying to aim at. So, which is a good solid number. I know a lot of schools carry some more, some maybe less, but we were really low numbers when it came spring ball time. So we were really going hard to try to bring in pretty much double what we had in spring. And so far it's been looking good.
Yeah. So how many guys would you say you have on roster that would be walk-on guys? Or what do you leave available for a walk-ons?
As far as I think, I don't believe anyone on our roster is a walk-on. I believe every player has some sort of scholarship. I know all of them range in how much they get, and some have less, some have more, but I'm almost positive that almost every kid has some sort of athletic scholarship from us.
Okay. Yeah, it's almost, well, you know what? All those kids are walk-ons then.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little different at the NAIA level. I don't think there's walk-ons are much of a thing at the NAIA level.
Yeah.
I guess you consider it they're all walk-ons, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're paying, the reality is some of these levels you're paying your way to some degree.
Right. I mean, there's some schools that they can make it happen for you if you're really that type of player and they need you and they can find the funds to make it happen where you're not paying anything. But
Yeah.
it's not likely. It's not likely. A lot of these kids are having to pay thousands out of pocket and to make it happen. And at that point, like, you got to have the resources, or you got to make it happen yourself. And that really shows who's committed and who's not committed.
Yeah, that's a great point. Couple more questions for you, Brad. I know you got to get out of here. We only have so much time, but I will just say this. Here's one thing that came to mind, and I don't think it's ever talked about. When you're talking to a kid and say let's role play real quick. So you say we're on a Zoom call and you're wanting me to come to your school. I want verbiage, because I think kids get, it's money, it's all this stuff, it's packages, I can only offer this, that. What do you typically say to a kid when you're going to offer them? And I know you're going to use the word package, like a scholarship package or whatever. Kind of break that down and what that actually is.
Like our recruiting, like our financial package or whatever we end up offering a kid.
Yeah. Coach Cagle, you say, Coach Z, I want you. You're a great quarterback. Here's what I'm going to tell you next.
Yeah. So if we're going to offer a kid, we go through a series of steps because we want to make sure they're committed. So we want to make sure, one, how it works for us, they got to apply to the school. So they got to apply first. And once they're accepted and into our databases and everything, then we know that they're committed. They took the time to get that done. Cool. They're accepted in the school. We can give them an offer. And then we'll get them on a call or Zoom or phone call or whatever. And then we'll send them over their offer package. This is basically a financial assistance package that we offer, and it will break it down. It will give the total cost at the top of room and board, tuition, whatever, how much the schooling costs, and then right underneath it will give academic and athletic scholarship amount. And that amount changes every time, and then so we'll give that amount right there, and then underneath that, what we do is we base ours off of whether these kids get Pell Grant or whatever student loans they get, so that we'll add those onto the package if they do, or if they don't, then it'll just be zero. And then right out the bottom, it'll say total cost, and then it'll give the total cost, and then they give a total out-of-pocket cost right at the bottom. So we kind of just give them a full breakdown of everything that they can get, and then it also changes a little bit because we also got to realize, all right, so hey, if you don't get Pell, obviously, then this amount looks like it's going to be a lot more. But you also got to explain that there's loans that you can find. If you apply for FAFSA, depending on how much you get from FAFSA, we'll knock that amount off. But then you just have to realize that you took loans out. But we like to emphasize the importance of, as long as you're committed and get your college degree and get a good job and everything, like, it's going to pay those loans off. Like, you're going to get those loans paid off one day. Like, and I always tell kids that the discipline and hard work and drive that you get from being a college athlete, and if you have that and can commit that to however many years it takes to graduate, then you're going to be able to apply that to anything else you do in this world, because you showed that you have the drive and commitment to get that done. Then it should just translate to anything you do in the world, in the next thing you do in the world. So,
yeah. Shout out Mike Hass. I'm dropping that episode. Blitnikoff winner, college football Hall of Famer, first team All-American. Listen, he talked all about that. He said, listen, obviously he played at the Division I level, but he was mentioning really how important it is to understand that can carry over your experience. And we're talking about experience in a minute. But he talked a lot about the experience of being a college football player and all the challenges and things you go through.
Yeah.
And the things that you're going to learn. And being around you, Coach, when you're talking about all these financial things, most kids, first of all, don't have a mindset of anything because they don't teach finances. They don't teach all this stuff. But if I was to take a kid, say 10 years down the road, he played for you, Coach Cagle, and we talked about the whole recruiting process like we're doing right now, he could tell you the whole thing because he had to go through it every step of the way. He had to fill out the financial aid. He had to all the verbiage. I mean, there's so many people out there that have went through that. They don't understand. I talk to kids too. Well, coach, I don't have this. I don't have that. It's like, listen, if you've been on this earth for however many years and you were a college player, especially at that level, I promise you, you have something to offer because you went through. I mean, the academics obviously is a big thing, but you got to look at it, what's holding the glue together or going from step A to step B, and what you learn along the process. And that's what I was going to ask you is we're talking about experience, and the experience, it's more of an experience going through what you're going to go through because you develop from 17, 18 to 21 at such a pivotal time. And it is important when you're doing this experience that you get around the right coaches and you do question them and you do your research and investigation, because with everything we're talking about right now, if you get in a bad situation, now, of course, coaches are going to come and go. You do attach yourself to coaches, but it's more important that you attach yourself to the program, to other things other than coaches, because newsflash, coaches are looking to move up. We mentioned it earlier. Coaches are going to be gone. You never know. Coach Cagle, we're not going to lie or anything. Next year, year after, whatever, you could be at, you know, you could be somewhere else. We don't know. But the reality is if you want to play and this is what you have in front of you, take it and run with it. And Mike Hass, great example. He started as a walk-on, built his whole life up with coaches previous, Dennis Erickson. It was behind Ocho Cinco, all those guys, put himself in a position to be the best. Then the coaching staff leaves, and he's like, what do I do? But you know what? He said, listen, it's all about those little steps, little goals, and putting himself in a position just to show up. Just show up, get it done. Shout out Adrian Tolbert. We talked a lot about that. We talked a lot about just showing up and making it happen. And I'm not going to keep going on a rant, but talk about the experience that a kid is going to go through from the moment he comes on the campus at Bethel College.
Well, depending on where they come from, it could be a big change. Specifically Bethel College, we're a smaller school. We've got about 500 undergrad students. So it's smaller than majority of these kids' high schools. So it could be a culture shock to that. But what I tell them is when it comes to classroom and education-wise, like it's small class sizes. You get to build relationships with your classmates and, importantly, your teachers. So as long as you show up, so there's the importance of showing up. As long as you show up and try, just give effort and show that you're trying your best to pass the class, then it's really hard to really fail classes out here. You really got to put in the effort to fail, or just not any effort at all. So you get the benefits of small class sizes and getting those relationships with teachers there. And other than that, like there's not much distraction. We mentioned that earlier. So you got no choice but to just lock in on ball and lock in on your schooling and getting it done. And that really shows who's committed and who really has what it takes to really get it done, because there's no distractions. I mean, we are about 20, 30 minutes from Wichita, Kansas, which is one of the bigger cities in Kansas. So guys can still go and have a little bit of a bit city feel and go to the mall, have some fun out there and do stuff like that. But when it comes to being around campus and being in the town of where we are, Newton, it's time to lock in and focus on ball and make sure you're doing the right things. And that's what we look for in our guys, and look to tell our guys to expect to come into is a good place that's with good coaches that are going to get you right and make sure you're putting in work to succeed.
Well, let's be honest. Most kids at that age are just not mature anyway.
Right.
And that's just a fact. And parents need to look at, if I got parents watching, which hopefully we do, you need to understand that your son, you got to know your son. I know it sounds really silly, but you got to know your son, and you got to know who the coaches are that they're going to go be around. One of the questions on a recruiting visit, I always ask, what kind of assistance do you have for maybe a kid that's not the greatest student, or a kid that gets in, I don't know, maybe gets in trouble or has distractions, or what are these other programs that maybe these schools have, or, those are some, I don't know, you can word it however you want to word it, but you have those kids that just aren't ready for the life. And
Right.
you have kids because they've got however many stars, they go to those big schools and they're used to just playing right away and getting on the field. And they don't understand that maybe the coaches are telling them that that's the situation, but they don't understand it until they actually are there.
Right.
Right. And it's still college. I don't care how many kids are on that campus, coach. You're still playing with nice uniforms.
Yeah.
You're dealing with a college schedule.
Yes, sir.
You're dealing with the weight room. And are you going to embrace it? And are you going to take it day by day, step by step, as opposed to kids think down the road or whatever? And when you reinvent yourself, man, and I won't go on too much of a rant here, but when you're reinventing yourself, when I walked onto Utah State, I knew I was a walk-on, and I knew that I didn't have money, and I knew they didn't give a crap about me, and I knew they can find another walk-on at any point in time. Same with Bethel College. They can find somebody new at any time. There's a recruiting class coming up in 6 to 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reality of it. And you have to get better no matter what. And bigger, faster, stronger. You've heard it 1,000 times. But I'll land the plane with this. I opened up with asking you this because I've never actually been to Kansas.
Yeah.
But putting no shade on anything, but San Diego food versus Wichita or Kansas food. So San Diego food versus Kansas food. What's the biggest difference?
The Mexican food. Mexican food. I feel like there's a lot of people on this that can relate if they're watching from California, and then people who can't relate because they're from Kansas. I went to a Mexican food place, came out here. On the menu, it said a California burrito. We all know what a California burrito is, right? And I looked at it and I said, oh, is it possible I can add French fries to this burrito? And she said, no. I said, why? And she said, our tortilla is not big enough. We can't wrap the burrito. I was like, then it's not a California burrito. Everyone knows a California burrito's got French fries in it or potatoes and something with the meat. And it was just funny. Like they don't do it right. It's just not the same when it comes to Mexican food. And I mean, there's some good barbecue out here, some good meats, and they do it right when it comes to that. But when it comes to seafood and Mexican food and stuff like that, you really can't beat it. And I do miss In-N-Out Burger from time to time.
Yeah, man. No, that's my grandmother's side is actually way, way, way back. They're actually from southern Kansas. They my grandfather grew up in northern Texas, but their roots kind of are in that area. So, yeah. But a lot of cattle, a lot of ranch. Listen, shout out Kansas, shout out Bethel College. Sure. Shout out what they got going on. Listen, you young student athletes, you going through the process. We're going to connect you with Coach Cagle. I know he's got his thing going on in the Midwest, but listen, they're always looking to bring guys in, especially guys from out here in San Diego, guys in LA, California, you top level players. If you're looking to still play, you're still out there. Listen, Coach Cagle's your guy. I know Coach Cagle on a personal level. And he's definitely going to put you in the right situation because, listen, he's a grinder and he's a good guy and he's a family man. So, but last thing, go ahead and plug the Midwest Passing Academy.
Yeah, so I just started up this new business venture, the Midwest Passing Academy. We offer private quarterback and wide receiver training. It could even be tight ends, running backs. We're really just trying to help extend the knowledge and skills in the pass game specifically, and really work on helping build that, whether it's youth to college athletes. So we offer that as well as group sessions. We're going to be offering some online trainings as well eventually, as well as getting our website up, and as well as hosting camps throughout the off season. We have 4 coming up this summer, passing camps where we're going to be on the field getting good field work in, drills, throwing receivers. And then right after the field session, we're going to transition into our film room, and we're going to go break down coverages. We're going to break down passing concepts. We're going to break down defenses and show film, and get these kids in the classroom and show them the other side of learning ball, and rather than just working on the field. So I like to bring that aspect to it. And then on top of that, I like to eventually work on getting these kids recruited, offering recruiting services, and just trying to build this as much as possible, help as many kids out, and get them out there learning the pass game, trying to get them to be the best possible players they possibly can be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And listen, hey, for those of you out there that don't know, now you know. So listen, hey, Walk On Warrior podcast, listen, go and subscribe, because listen, when this drops, I promise you we're going to keep elevating this thing, and we're going to cut it up, and we're definitely going to turn this into the biggest recruiting platform we possibly can, especially, hopefully in the nation, man, because we're bringing a team, we're bringing this whole thing together. And ultimately, at the end of the day, like I always say, and I'm going to finish the podcast with this, and I always do, it's not about me or Coach Cagle. It's all about you parents and you young student athletes. We'll see you guys on the next episode.